Am I wrong for kicking out my girlfriend and her son after she invited her ex into our home? I, 35 male, and my girlfriend Sarah, 35 female, have been together for 4 years. She has a son, Nathan, 9 male, with her ex, Mark, 36 male. Sarah has full custody of Nathan, with her ex having scheduled visitations one weekend of every month. Sarah and Nathan moved in with me a little over a year and a half ago, and in my perspective, it was a little rocky at first. I've always been pretty protective of my space, so making room for 2 people have been difficult for me. When Sarah moved in with me, we agreed that the visitations from Mark would be held in our apartment as long as I'm home. The main reason I wanted this is because I don't know Mark that well, and I don't want him wandering around our apartment without me there. When we proposed this idea to Mark, he was fine with it. Now, moving on to the real issue. 3 weeks ago marked 4 months since Mark's last visit, so I had asked Sarah when he was planning on visiting Nathan. My girlfriend replied by shrugging her shoulders and telling me that she'd ask. She never followed up with it. So a few days ago, I asked when Mark's next visit was, and Sarah said she'd tell me when she knew. Nathan was in the living room, but had apparently overheard us and shouted something along the lines of, "Dad was here last weekend, remember?" Sarah's face immediately dropped, and when I asked what Nathan meant, she wouldn't give me a direct answer. Eventually, she ended up telling me that for the past 2 visits, Mark had been to our apartment when I was working. When I accused her of going back on our agreement, she kept telling me that this was her home too, and she could invite whoever she wanted, and that it was fine because she was there and watching. I told her that was besides the point, and she violated my trust. It blew up into a huge argument, which ended in me telling her to get out of my apartment. She packed up and left with Nathan. Last I heard, she was staying with her parents. I've gotten several messages from both Sarah and her parents calling me an asshole for kicking Sarah and Nathan out of their home for something so small. She's even been blasting me on Instagram and Facebook about how horrible I am to do this to her. It's got me thinking I might be the asshole, but I'm not entirely sure yet. So, am I the asshole? She lied to your face! If she felt like she had done nothing wrong, she would have told you. Definitely some sussy stuff happened those 2 times he was here.
My husband went on a last date with his ex a week before our wedding just to make sure. His ex was always the one that got away, according to everyone around him. He ended things with her because he didn't see a future with her, and everyone around him was so shocked because she was so good and so beautiful. Then we met, and I soon understood that everyone on his side preferred her. He never gave me any reason to doubt him ever. He always gave me the impression that he knew exactly what he wanted. He was always secure enough, and he even told me a couple months into our relationship that he loved me, and I never thought that he was lying about it. I never used to feel like I wasn't enough to him. He is fully aware of what people think about him leaving his ex, but he always gave me the impression that he thought that they were just silly and immature. He even told his mom that I'm the one that he chose, and if she wanted to be a part of that, then she needed to clean up her act. We got married 3 years ago now, and I only just recently found out that he went on a date with her a few days before our wedding. So I guess he wanted to know that she wasn't like everyone else thought, the one that got away. His mom told me gleefully when she came to visit our new baby, while she was looking at my daughter, she was like, "I wonder what would have happened if he would have changed his mind after that date and I was coming to visit their baby now." I mean, what the actual fuck? Like, the audacity? She's obviously referring to the one that got away and my husband if they were to have a baby. Really not sure what possessed her to think that that was okay to say. She said it like with a sigh, but also gleefully, if you know what I mean. So I haven't spoken to him for about over a week now. I really hate the silent treatment, but I just cannot get myself to talk to him. Like, it's not something that I'm doing to punish him or manipulate him at all. So just to add, he was there when his mom said this, and he told his mom to shut up. And then he told me that he did go on the date, like he finally admitted it to me, and he told me that his mom was telling the truth when she told me the reason that he went on a date in the first place. I am not trying to get the upper hand or anything, but I actually cannot bear to look at him or talk to him. So, am I the asshole for giving my husband the silent treatment?
2 weeks ago, a man attacked me on the beach and put me in the hospital. My friends and I were getting dinner at Fresco Grill in Carlsbad Village, which, if you don't know, is a super safe area. After dinner, we decided to go down to the water and sit on a lifeguard tower just to hang out at the beach. These 2 kids, probably like 12 years old, came riding by on e-bikes, like down on the sand in front of us. I put way too much concealer on. They were literally like 12 years old. They stopped riding their bikes in front of us and they're all, "Hey ladies," like just being super funny little kids. Not even like 2 seconds later, this drunk guy from out of nowhere comes walking up and he starts yelling at the kids. He's like, you guys, slurring his words, you guys aren't allowed to ride those bikes on this beach. Like, you wouldn't do that if there was a lifeguard here. You better get off your bikes, get off your bikes. Just like yelling at them. And we were all like, whoa, like, calm down. So we tried to like make light of the situation. We were like, haha, like, it's fine, they're fine. We even were like, these are my little brothers, like, leave them alone, they're fine. So he scares them off so badly they end up leaving, and I was like, great, now we're stuck here alone with this guy. Not that I was like counting on two 12-year-olds to do any like protecting, but it was still comforting to like have other people there. So the boys leave and we're sitting on top of the lifeguard tower. This man is standing at the bottom of the ladder, like blocking the bottom of the ladder. He's obviously drunk, slurring his words, holding a beer can or like a tall boy of some sort. Like I said, he was obviously drunk, and a lot of the things he was saying wasn't even making any sense, and it was making us feel uncomfortable, and we didn't know how to like act. So at first we're like trying to laugh it off because we feel weird, and if you are a woman and you've ever been in an uncomfortable situation with a guy, a lot of the times all you feel like you can do is like laugh it off. He really did not like my friend Kaylee, who was sitting to my left. She's sitting directly at the top of the stairs. I'm in the middle, and then my friend Abby's to my right. She was kind of making jokes and laughing at him when I would say, leave us alone, go away, because he wasn't leaving us alone. He wasn't going away. So I kept being like, all right, dude, like, have a good night. We're not trying to have a conversation with you. Like, go away. You're making us feel weird, blah, blah, blah. To which, of course, he starts saying things like, this is what's wrong with women. You guys don't know how to have normal, logical conversations. And I was like, dude, we're not trying to have a conversation with you. Like, have a good night. Go away. He did not like that. He starts getting even more aggressive. And once again, I tell him to leave us alone. And he takes a step up onto the ladder and says, oh, yeah, or what? Or what? And it wasn't just one step up, like he was trying to scare us and like make a point or whatever. He was coming up that ladder and he wasn't stopping. My friend Kaylee, the one that's sitting at the top of the ladder, she puts her foot out and she's like, don't come up here. Everything's happening so quickly. We're all saying, stop, leave us alone, get down, get back. Kaylee quickly takes her foot back because we're all afraid he's gonna like grab her. She's scooting back on her butt. He's coming up the ladder, and at this point, she's scooting back. He's basically standing over her at this point. And that's when I got in the middle of them and I said, dude, get back. Don't come up here. And he says, oh yeah, or what, one more time. Grabs my jacket and chucks me off the top of the lifeguard tower. Chucks me. So I fall right onto my head and my ribs on the sand, which resulted in a collapsed right lung, meaning my right lung separated from the rib cage and air got in between my lung and my ribs. I thought I had for sure broken a rib, maybe even my collarbone, because everything was just not where it was supposed to be sitting. So I fall, quick bright flash of light, and that's how I knew, crap, I just hit my head really hard. I don't really know how I landed. I landed somehow like this, I think. Even this hurts really bad still. The guy starts running away. My friend Kaylee goes after him. She's trying to record him and she's like, don't you dare try to leave. We already called the cops. Like, you're not gonna get away with this. She's taking pictures of him, to which he starts bumping his chest into her and putting his hands on her again. So then she's like, oop, I can't be alone over here with you. She comes back over to the group. I remember laying on my back and the guy coming back over and like standing over me. And I just remember him like staring at me and going like this and like talking to some other guy. Long story short, he ends up getting away. There weren't really any men around. There were just like younger, maybe high school boys. I was in the hospital for 4 days. 4 days? Yeah, I was on the 3rd and I left on the 5th of July. I'm still in pain. I still can't like sleep comfortably. My arm was in a sling as of just a few days ago. This was not a fun healing process. My family ended up posting those photos we took of him that night and posted it on their socials asking if anyone recognized him, to which someone did. So we did find out who he is. Worst 4th of July of my life. We also found out that this is not the first time he has attacked a girl. I've read a few people on Facebook that had recognized him saying that he specifically targets women-owned businesses like hair salons. One lady had him walk in through their back door and ask like, what are you doing here? Like, what is this? And she was like, it's a hair salon. And then he like mumbled something under his breath and she then like closed the door and locked the door. That same woman owned another location in Oceanside, which she had to close down because of him. He kept coming in and making her feel unsafe. Another lady wrote on Facebook that she recognized him as a man that literally robbed her sister of all the cash in her purse. So this is not the first time he's gone after a girl. There is a case filed against him. We're still waiting for an update, but it's been 12 days and I would like to get this guy off of the streets of Carlsbad.
Everyone always talks about like the fun stories or like the good stories of gardening. I got some bad ones, so I'm gonna tell you a bad story. This is also just one of the major downsides of gardening: paranoia. So I had somebody over and they were like on my porch like gardening, and I remember I went outside to them and I just like told them that I was gonna take a shower real quick, right? And I go back inside and I accidentally lock the door. Complete accident, just out of habit. I lock the porch door, so I go to my bathroom, I start taking my shower. While I'm in the shower, I start hearing like faint, like banging, right? But I'm like, nah, like I'm tweaking, like I'm not really hearing anything. But then I hear it again and I'm like, okay, like that must be like my upstairs neighbor or something, like what would that be, you know? But then it starts getting louder and it starts getting like harder, and I'm like, oh my God, like what is that? So I peek my head out the shower and then it gets the loudest and hardest that I've heard, and I was like, oh crap. I was like, I must have accidentally locked the door and put them out there. So I grab my towel real quick, I throw it around me, I'm drenched, I got shampoo in my hair and everything, and I like waddle to the door. I open it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I did not mean to lock the door. I'm laughing, right? I'm laughing because I'm thinking they're gonna be thinking like, oh, it's fine, I forgot you're in the shower, right? No, they're looking at me with the most distraught face that I've ever seen on somebody. Like they were like white as a ghost, right? And they're like, oh my God, I thought you offed yourself. Like they told me they thought myself. And I was like, what? And they were like, I thought that you locked me out here and then went to your room to yourself. And I was like, oh my God, why would I do that? Why is that your first thought? And they're like, I'm just like hella paranoid right now because they just gardened. And so like they thought the absolute worst case scenario. And that's what happens a lot when you're gardened. And people ask me, they're like, Jezebel, how do I like stop this? You just gotta lock it in for real. There is no stopping it. It doesn't go away. It's basically, depending on what it is that you're gardening with, that specific flower that you're gardening with, that might be one of the symptoms that comes along with it. That's why if you go on like a website where you can read about different kinds of flowers, it'll tell you like the effects and like the pros and the cons, and like under cons, like it might say paranoia, because it's normal to experience that. But you just got to have the mental toughness to get through it. You have to remind yourself that, oh, I just gardened, like I'm good, versus what that person did, which they took the worst case scenario and ran with it.
Am I the astronaut for telling my wife she is having an emotional affair? Wife and I had a serious disagreement, and we're on Reddit asking strangers if we're right, because it's not like we can get honest opinions from friends and family. My wife cannot be alone with her thoughts for a second. She's always got to be doing something, keeping her hands busy, her mind busy. She never sits down for a minute. She's like a hummingbird who can never for a second be alone or relax. I describe myself as an introvert in an extroverted world with a very extroverted wife. She does not understand my need for time alone. I work for 10 to 12 hours a day talking to people. I'm listening to them and directing them. I just want some time alone to unwind after work. She does not understand that. She decided to replace me with her friend because I wanted time to unwind. They spend almost every single day together. She's often not home because she's doing something with her, quotation marks, friend. And he is obviously a great-looking guy whose body would fit in Paris right now. As if that helps my worries with my marriage. My wife and I got into an argument because I asked her to cut down on the time she's seeing this friend. She then retaliated that she'll see other friends instead. I told her she's having an emotional affair and she refused to accept it. It's all my fault that she's spending time with this friend. Am I the astronaut? I just want her to stop. I just want her to take a step back and realize this isn't healthy for our marriage. I asked her if she wanted a divorce, and she said I could go file one if I cared, but I'm such a selfish, lazy ass I wouldn't even do it. I want her to just admit it, but getting her to admit that she's doing anything wrong is like pulling teeth. And then that commenter coming back says, I'm sorry, man. She just wants you to do it. She cannot admit the truth. It's got to be tough in that house right now, especially seeing her leave every day to be with another man. That would kill me. Honestly, just pull the plug yourself. Let her blame you. This is only going to get worse, and she will end up fully destroying you before deciding to leave herself. Again, by that point, you will have been decimated. At least this way, you are leaving with a small piece of you intact. OP, yeah, I should, but divorce. It's just so hard, man. We've been married a long time. Divorce is just complicated, and it's a whole legal thing, and it's just too much for me to handle right now. Update 1 day later. I showed my wife the comments from my last post, and as I expected, she got pissed at me for misrepresenting the situation. I can't do anything right. I told her that everybody agreed she was having an emotional affair. I might have said things I didn't mean, like kicking her out, but she was having an affair in front of my face, and I didn't think she was in the wrong. She said I was disgusting for thinking that single men wouldn't want to be friends with a married woman. She also said that her excuse is that I don't pay enough attention to her and that she doesn't want sex are totally legitimate. Wife's side of the story. I am with my husband because I love him, not for any ulterior reasons. I saw a lot of comments that I was using him for money. We make roughly the same salary and we have similar savings and retirement accounts. I have made many sacrifices for my husband out of love. My husband and I have been married for 12 years, but over time he became more and more introverted. He hates people and wants to spend a lot of time alone to unwind. This is our normal schedule. My husband's work starts at 8:30 to 9 a.m. His job involves a lot of client interaction and team interaction. He could leave by 5:30 or 6 p.m., but often he chooses to stay alone until 8 p.m. because they get free dinner credit if they stay past 8. His team is not staying. He does not have extra work to do. He hates cooking, but he's also very choosy with meals. He comes home at 8:30 p.m. and immediately goes into his man cave to unwind. He'll be there for hours. He'll then come out at 11:30 p.m. We'll have our first conversation of the day, and then after 20 to 30 minutes, he'll want to have sex. We only have sex once a month or so because of this. On weekends, he'll spend the entire day either in bed or holed up in his man cave. He will never want to do anything that involves stepping out of the home except on rare occasions. He can be out for 2 hours and be the most wonderful man that I married, but by hour 3, he becomes downright curt to me and embarrassing. I can never have a beach day or a day at the park or a museum date or even a long dinner with him. On Sunday nights, he'll complete all the chores he let pile up into the week. My schedule is pretty straightforward. I get up and go to work before my husband is awake. I come home by 4 p.m. and wrap up any other work at home. I'll clean a bit, do laundry, and make dinner. My friend, who is just a very good friend, lives in the same apartment complex I do, is a great cook. He and I will often swap recipes and cook together. We end up eating dinner together a lot. We also go on a nice walk after dinner. I do spend more time with my friend because he is close by. He does not have any children, and he has a relatively free schedule and likes activities. I'll talk with my friends and family as well over FaceTime, right? Most of my family is physically far away, but I love them and I love catching up with them. Most of my friends have kids and are busy, so I treasure talking with them as well. On weekends, I'll do chores, make plans, and then catch up with my friends. This past weekend, I went to a friend's art submission at a state fair. I'll go grocery shopping or I'll drive 10 to 20 minutes for a scenic hike. We live in some of the most beautiful natural areas in the world, and I just love a 2 to 3 hour hike and reaching the peak of a small mountain. I like trying new foods. I like doing new things. I like being with people. I even like babysitting my friend's children. Now he wants me to cut off my friend because he says it's an emotional affair. We have never crossed any boundaries. I don't have any feelings for him, and I don't think he has any feelings for me. If he did, he has never once indicated that. But my husband also doesn't want me to talk on FaceTime with my friends and family because it irritates him. What? He doesn't want me to bring my friend around because they're loud and their kids are loud. What? I'm frustrated and tired of compromising when all I've done is compromise. I can't have dinner parties or host my family or bring friends home. I can't go on vacation because my husband won't go. He will never spend a full day with me. He threatened to kick me out yesterday because of the emotional affair he accused me of having. I'm tired of how he is treating me and how he refuses to take any responsibility for the failure of our marriage. Husband. So Reddit, there you have it. She's blaming everything on me. Am I the astronaut or is she? Here's a few comments. Comment, you guys may love each other, but I don't think you're compatible. If you are, you need counseling to get to a healthy place that both people are comfortable in. What you have now isn't working for either of you. Another commenter, to be honest, it sounds like your wife is just bored in a marriage where her husband has no interest in spending time with her or going out and doing activities as a couple. Where is the companionship in this marriage currently? Just because you tend to be introverted, does this mean your wife has to automatically adopt those same characteristics and do nothing at all with her free time? Go spend time with her on a consistent basis, and I bet she has way less time to hang out with her friend. Another comment, so straight up incompatible. So you separate. So she gets her same life without the pressure of on-demand sex. You get your same life, only you have to clean, do laundry, and cook, or pay for all that, and the sex too.
Here are some of the rules that we had to follow as K-pop trainees. Number 1 was weight checks every morning. We would weigh ourselves first thing in the morning when getting to practice and then send a picture of the scale to the training team. Eventually, the training team started weighing us in person and they would weigh us at random, so we would always be on edge. Another thing that we had to be aware of was phone checks. They wouldn't do this often, but sometimes they would just take our phones and then look through them. There's actually a time where they asked for any old usernames and passwords as well as any names that we had used online. From there, they just went and tried to erase our online presence as much as possible. So like old YouTube videos that I was in, pictures of me that were online, and like my old Twitter account that I made when I was 13, they were all gone from the internet. So on that same note, we weren't allowed to have any social media, but aside from like snacking and not dieting, that was probably the biggest rule break because all the trainees had private Instagrams. Another thing that's a little more obvious is no alcohol, drugs, or smoking, even if you were of age. There was this one trainee that had joined at one point, and immediately some girls got like a bad vibe from her, and eventually rumors were spread that she was like smoking in the bathroom. Then some girls found pictures of her online, underage drinking at a bar, and then after that, a few girls that were sharing the same practice room as her saw cigarettes, like a box of cigarettes, drop out of her jacket. That was like the final straw. They took all the evidence and stuff and then went to the training team and got the girl kicked out like the next day. Another thing that mostly applied to foreigners was that we weren't allowed to speak in any other language aside from Korean. All of the lessons were done in Korean, so if you had trouble understanding, you just had to deal with it. Another rule was that we weren't allowed to wear makeup or have untied hair. Aside from times where we had like styling classes or like test photo shoots where we would get our hair and makeup done, or monthly evaluations where we were allowed to do like minimal makeup, we weren't allowed to have any makeup on, and we also had to tie our hair up whenever we were practicing. Another thing was that we weren't allowed to wear leggings outside of practice. Before dance practice, they always wanted us to wear like tighter tops and like leggings so that the dance teacher could easily correct our lines, but outside of practice we weren't allowed to wear leggings, and I think this has to do with like the culture of Korea. They would look at the CCTV to make sure that we got to practice wearing loose-fitting pants. Before we left for practice, we would always have to change into loose-fitting pants or wear loose-fitting pants over our leggings. Another thing was that we weren't allowed to change our hair or do our nails without the company's like permission. If you wanted to like dye your hair, cut bangs, or cut your hair even just like a shorter length, you would have to ask the company first, and the answer would usually be no. Girls pretty much just only had their natural hair colors and kept their hair at like a longer length. The last thing they made us do was send a picture of the clock when we got back from practice. So as we left for practice, we would send the training team a text and also the videos that we had taken for that day, and then after we got back from practice, they would expect us to take a picture of like the clock or a watch to show the time that we had gotten back, and they would just like compare the commute times day by day. Finally, the last thing that we had to be aware of was that we were being watched by CCTV. There were cameras in the corner of every single practice room, and the training team had access to live footage on their phones, so they would just always be monitoring us. If you were sitting down for too long, looking at your phone or your iPad for too long, the training team would send a text immediately on Kakao Talk and scolding you to get back to practice. In the end, we realized that the training team doesn't really wake up that early, so in the mornings we would kind of do whatever we wanted and would like nap in the blind spots or like eat snacks and breakfast. There was a time that we did get caught, but this is getting a little long, so I will save that story time for next time. But those are all the rules that I can think of for now.
Okay, so this story happened to me a couple of years ago. I was probably the ripe age of 16 years old. And it's really humbling to even think about this, because the fact that I was having an exorcism over a male, like over the male species, was I okay? Was there nothing else to worry about at age 16? No. So I feel like we need to set the scene here and add some context. So I was a prime little 16, 17-year-old at the time of this story. And I was convinced that I was with the love of my life at this point. I had met the love of my life. I was trying on wedding dresses in between doing my leaving cert. But I didn't care. I was 16 years old. This was going to be the best relationship probably ever seen. Okay, now fast forward about 3 months later and this relationship was over. Now, was this a shock to literally anybody on this planet except for me? No. Like, you could have bet your life's savings that this was going to happen. But to me, this was the shock of the century, end of the world. Like, I couldn't see how I was going to live on without this 16-year-old love in my life. And I feel like you can only imagine how well a little 16-year-old takes a breakup like this. So the only possible way I could think of to recover from this absolute heartbreak was to put on a smelly, unwashed snuddy that weighed probably 3 times more than I did and become the human version of bed rot in a pitch black room. Like, blinds down, curtains drawn, snuddy on, and it's 2 p.m. And during this time, I would play one Olivia Rodrigo song on repeat for 3 hours in my dark little cave. And my friends would come and visit me, and to this day, they still say they've never seen such a dishevelled human in their entire life. like a corpse of a human. So I feel like we've built up a nice image of the little creature that was in fetal position, rocking back and forth every night. And it only gets worse. It only gets worse. But I want you to keep that image in your mind. So one of my favourite little hobbies to pass the time in my cave was to stalk snap maps at the time. Now, every girl does it, but during a breakup, it's probably the worst idea ever. We take out a magnifying glass. It's giving Dora the Explorer. Worst decision you can make. Don't do it. Don't do it. So tell me why. It's about 2 days after the breakup and I'm doing my nightly snap map stalk when I see the maps have moved to a river and they are last seen 4 hours ago. So I'm sure you can all imagine with the mental state that I was in, I reacted like a sane person by screeching hysterically and ringing the boy probably 500 times, ringing his parents, basically trying to hunt him down because where could he be? Why is he offline for 4 hours at a river? So this actually gave me a new lease of life. Like I levitated off the bed, levitated out of the snuddy, and I was like, okay, it's mission time. Like this boy could be missing. He could have slipped into the river. I'm going to find him. I'm going to be his savior and he's going to come back to me. Like this was an opportunity of a lifetime for me. So at this point, I'm practically doing parkour off the walls with excitement that I'm going to find this man. Like I'm making missing person t-shirts as we speak. I'm rounding up a search team. I'm like, come on girls, I'm going to be the savior. Like, thank you, Jesus, for this opportunity. Now, my mission was suddenly put on pause when I see my phone start to ring and it's him. Now, this was probably the best moment of my entire life. I was flicking the hair, putting on lip gloss, ready to answer, assuming that this man was obviously going to beg for me back, say that he misses me so much. Like, this was the best phone call of my life. Now, the phone call kind of began with him practically begging me to stop ringing him and all of his family members. But did I listen to any of that? No, that went over my head because he rang me. I was getting to hear his voice. He was the one who was ringing me. So did I care what he was actually saying? No. So my little Delulu self starts worshipping him, telling him how grateful I am that he's okay. Like, did he slip in the river? Did his phone fall into the river? Was that why he was offline? And he says, what are you talking about? I need you all to lock in for the next part that I'm about to tell you, because it's locked into my memory for the rest of my life. This man proceeds to tell me that he was at the river with a female. And this whole time, I was interrupting by ringing 500 times. With a female, offline 4 hours, 4 hours. So you can only imagine how I reacted, how the little snuddy monster 5000 reacted to that exact sentence. Like, I want you to take a moment to even try and picture the reaction. When I tell you, I think that scientists could probably compare it to a nuclear explosion going off. That's simply the only way I could put it. Now, in my head, it looked like Ross and Rachel from Friends doing the "we were on a break" speech. However, it was more of a banshee sort of noise coming out of me while he did not care at all and was like, can I please hang up so I can go back to the female at the river, please? So I would say this lasted for about 3 full hours of me practically doing donuts on the ceiling, screeching, when eventually he said, enough is enough here. Like, can you stop that? And also, can you delete all photos of us on social media, please? It's been about 5 years since that happened, and I've never been cooked so hard in my entire life. Like, I think it burnt me, to be honest, for the rest of my life. I've never recovered since. And all I can say is, like, fair play. Like, the game's the game. Ladies, learn from this, please.